Welcome. My name is Gena Timberman, and you are listening to Timber People, a podcast about people who, like timber, are strong, build and create, who gather us together like fuel that feeds fire. People who support structures of our community that uplift and protect. Welcome to the show. I'm so excited to welcome my sister friend, my dear beloved girlfriend, Dr. Kelli Mosteller. Welcome.
Hi, Gena. Thank you for having me on the show.
I've been so excited to welcome you on the show, and your journey has been just an inspiring one, and it's so great to have you here in Oklahoma back. And Kelli is citizen Potawatomi, and she is the executive director of the First Americans Museum, and that just makes my heart sing.
Mine too. Mine too.
Oh, I was just bursting with joy knowing that, one, you were coming back home, but especially to really lead the team and the institution that's so dear to me and so many other people in the state and across Indian country. And you're doing an amazing job, and you're an incredible woman and a leader. And, for the listener, Kelli has had such a long history of her commitment to her people, for the citizen Potawatomi people. And we'll get into that and the roles that she has really committed to with their Eagle Aviary, with the journey of the Citizen Potawatomi Nation Cultural Heritage Center, and as well as a gaming commissioner and a mentor to youth, but also more recently coming back in 2022 from serving as the executive director of the Harvard University Native American program. So just open arms, big hugs. Welcome back to Oklahoma.
Miigwech, I appreciate it. It feels good to be home.
Oh, goodness. Well, so I want to talk a little bit about where you're from for the listener.
Yeah, I grew up in Comanche, Oklahoma. So for those that don't know, it's very south central near Duncan, Lawton area. Small town. I graduated with 84 people. I knew the middle names of every single person in my class that I graduated with, from kindergarten all the way through high school. And then I went off to Oklahoma State, as Mostellers do.
Right.
I have so many aunts and uncles and cousins, and everyone is a cowboy. So it was just a natural fit. Went off to OSU, did a history degree, and then I made the ultimate defect south of the river and went to the University of Texas at Austin for my master's and PhD. And there were some family members who didn't want to forgive me for that one, but I had a wonderful time in Austin, and then came back home to start my career.
I understand that with the angst that some have about going south to Texas, but go Pokes.
Exactly, yes. I say I bleed orange, whether it's true orange or OSU orange or burnt orange. That orange is in my blood.
Right. I love it. And many people may not know the history you have with what you did in Italy, which is so cool. And I know that if I go back to Italy ever, I want you by my side.
Yes, I studied abroad in Italy, but I was such a history person that I was actually just sort of taking friends and their families on trip. When they would go to Rome, I'll go with you and I'll be your tour guide. And so I ended up spending a lot of my weekends kind of going with different friend groups and their families, and just sort of tour guided around unofficially, and have made several trips back. And it's sort of my home away from home. It keeps, Duolingo is keeping me connected, and every few years we have to schedule a trip, so I have a reason to go back and reconnect with my other home.
Well, that's a bucket list goal for me. So that would be so great. And Kelli and I have been sister friends for about 14 years. And when I met you as the executive director of the Citizen Potawatomi Nation's Cultural Heritage Center, you really did the heavy lifting with your awesome team in opening, and had just the trials and tribulations of going through a reopening, which I was just watching in awe with your warrior ways of everyone coming together and taking what was already an incredible museum experience into really staying positive despite the challenges that you were faced with at that time. And for anyone who has not been out to see their Heritage Center, it is incredible. And so many of the tribe citizens have contributed with artwork and with language and design of the programs. And whenever I have people come into the state to visit tribal museums and cultural centers, I have to take them out there to see your awesome work. And what was that like working with your people in that capacity? And then after the reopening of the galleries?
Absolutely. It's your dream. I was working down at, as a grad student on my dissertation down in Austin when I got the call that the position was opening up. And when you get that call to come home, you have to follow through, and your community reaches out. You got to do what you can do. So I came home as I was finishing my dissertation. I worked on dissertation while working full time, which is I do not suggest to anyone. It was a lot of really long weekends and sleepless nights trying to do that, but it was so rewarding, and I was very, very blessed that my first few weeks in my new position, I went to Chairman Barrett and Mrs. Capps, our vice chairman, and said, can I start over? Can we tear it down and start over? And they said, sure, go for it. And we took it down to, bare flooring and had this vision for how we wanted the museum to look. And we worked on that so hard for about 4.5 years. And then we had a flood. There was an unfortunate situation where an uncapped water main was turned on under our building, and tens of thousands of gallons of water pumped out of this water main and bubbled up through the floor. And we had to tear all that work we had done for years and years and years. We literally brought in a saw and had to cut it apart and haul it out the back door in one day. It was one of the most traumatic experiences of my life. I think it gave me some of these gray hairs that I have. And, for a long time, people kept saying, well, look at the silver lining. Now you can rebuild it the way you want. And I did not want to see the silver lining for a long time. I wanted to wallow in my misery and the stress of it. But, they were right. Once we got over the disaster mitigation, I've told people I've built a museum from the ground up in the best possible sense and in the worst possible sense. And the first time we did it, we had time, we had a plan, we had support of the tribe, we had all these things. The next time we did it, it was with chaos and insurance claims and water issue after water issue. Once you have a flood like that, it's not just the initial water issue, it's the residual humidity, it's all the ways it's affected the ground underneath the building. And it was just sort of one issue after another. When we finally came out on the other side of that, the exhibits that we have now are such a truer story to who we are. And we were able to bring in the community and tell this story that, yes, it is chronological in a way that I think it allows most people who are used to learning history in that way. It allows them to sort of go through the space and absorb it in a way that makes sense to their brains. But we know that we built it around a traditional story of these prophets that came to our people over time. So while it fits that sort of chronological linear time frame, we know it's the story of those prophets who came to us and the things that they revealed and the things that would happen to our people. So it was our way of sort of balancing how people tend to understand history, but also knowing that we have it rooted in our own oral traditions and our own teachings and our own understanding of who we are as a people. And it was such a personal project. And, I'm so proud of the team. I'm so proud of everything that the folks at CPN have done. And we ended up getting recognized by the Institute of Museum and Library Services and ATALM as one of the top 10 Native cultural centers in the country. And it's not just the finished product, it's also the process. Right. So that when other people are thinking of what they want to do at their cultural centers, we can give them that insight of, you have to go back to who you are. You have to bring in community members. You have to rely on your stories. It can't just be something that you learned that you should do when you were getting your museum studies degree. Like that can guide you, but at the core of it, it has to be who you are as a people.
Right. That project really is a true case study in how your people, Potawatomi people doing Potawatomi things, transcending those challenging times and, proving your resilience in during those times. And really that creating a space, a beautiful place that can really serve as that vehicle through which your people can speak and express themselves and to share your beautiful aesthetic poetry in the artwork and in the designs, from your origins to how you're represented today. And there are so many wonderful examples that informed what's now First Americans Museum, as well as other tribal institutions and Native cultural centers and other spaces, in that the process, as you say, as you express, but also there's such thoughtful ways in which you think about the challenging, difficult decisions people had to make. You have the interactives that engage the visitor to really think about what decisions leaders were up against or individuals. And no matter what choice they selected, that it was a true reality to people that really played out in the world around them.
Absolutely. We talk about removal a lot. We were a tribe that were removed multiple times before we finally arrived in Indian Territory. And I think over time, some of those stories have become misinterpreted in a way that especially once we took U.S. citizenship and got into this sort of assimilation era, there's sort of a narrative that has cropped up that we sort of, I don't know a better way to say it, sold out. Right. You took U.S. citizenship early, you took land allotments early. And what we wanted to reframe was we had tried everything. We had tried resisting. We had tried making agreements to stay in our homelands. We had tried suing. We had tried all of these things. And each time we were being forcefully pushed out of our homeland to the next reservation, to the next reservation. And so that process that we went through to become U.S. citizens, we were trying another tactic. Mm-hmm. We were going to, you say you want to play by these rules and that you'll give us a piece of paper, a title to this land that you can't take away. Okay, we're going to play your game. We're going to, so that's what those interactives and what we were trying to make people understand in the museum is these decisions were being made with real circumstances. Right. They were not being made in a vacuum. People were trying to do their best to survive. And every decision had a really true, harsh reality on the other end. And no one ended up being able to escape the system that was the U.S. assimilation era.
Right. And the families that constitute what's now the Citizen Potawatomi Nation here in Oklahoma, the stories, I know that you are descendant of the OG and Weld families, and that in and of itself has its own story. And many people may not realize the deep-rooted connections that your people have to so many areas. You mentioned about different removal experiences and the connection to areas around the Great Lakes and north of the border, and that those connections are still very real, and the ways in which you all still stay connected and come together. And I've always been inspired and in awe of your traditional knowledge and your awareness and understanding of your own and your people's connection historically to one another. It's really interesting.
Yeah, it's something that we're very, very proud of. The founding families are sort of how we've come to understand our organization as the Citizen Potawatomi Nation, and it roots back to that, one of those treaties that we signed, but also the fact that I'm very, very proud of the fact that the Citizen Potawatomi Nation is one of many Potawatomi nations, both in the U.S. and in Canada. Right. And we are really, really lucky that for the last 30 plus years, we have taken a week of each year to get together and we take turns hosting so that we go back to Potawatomi Gathering. So not only do we have a very clear understanding of who we are within our own Citizen Potawatomi community, we know who we are in the larger Anishinaabe community. When we go back with our Potawatomi relatives and that really strong connection and sharing knowledge and having it hosted sometimes down here with us in Oklahoma, but sometimes it's up in Canada and other times it's in Michigan, and going back to the homeland and seeing those different teachings that maybe have changed over time because of removal, or seeing the way that different communities have picked up things from the tribes that they're around today. And it's a beautiful thing to have that ability to have a real sense and a clarity of who you are within that family, within your tribe, within your own tribe, within the larger tribal network. It's those different points of connection that I think have really guided who I am as a Potawatomi woman. It is always a thing I go back to ground myself to, is I know who I am, I know who my family is, and I know who my community is.
It's been really special for me and undoubtedly for many others to witness your connection and that commitment and the way in which you honor your culture. And I want to say that speaking of beautiful things, that you've played an important role in creating. You're an auntie to your relatives at the Eagle Aviary, and I like to talk about things that what Citizen Potawatomi Nation is doing unique and very cool and forward moving things. And the Eagle Aviary is so just incredible. I almost get emotional just bringing it up, but that's really special. That's a great place.
It is the most special place in the world. My role as auntie to those eagles and the sisterhood I have with Jennifer and Bree, the sisters who take care of those eagles, and it is the most special thing to me. It was honestly, my mother will be so sad to hear this, but it was the hardest part about leaving when I went to Boston for 2 years. Was I can call my mom, I can, FaceTime with my nephew, I can do those things. When I was away from the Eagles, I felt that separation. And, while I was away, we had a new relative join us, my sweet nephew Kishko, who his name means second born. He was born back in May. In fact, he hatched the week of my birthday, so I very much feel like we are connected and simpatico.
Yes.
He is a very special young man, but I was able to come back a few weeks after he was born, when he still had his little white eagle fluff, and he was just a little guy. And getting on the plane to go back to Boston after that, it physically hurt.
I understand. And Jennifer and Bree, their commitment is just incredible, and they are just it's really special to see what they do and what they do to educate others. And while the aviary itself and its design and being with the birds and it's beautiful, the meaning it brings to the community around it is so important. And with veterans and with those that are in need of healing and culturally to the community, that's really it's really special.
Absolutely. For most Native people, our only source for feathers is from the National Repository.
Right.
And it does a great service. I am so glad we have the National Repository, but it is not tribally run. It is a federal project. And so things are done in a way that they are done by, people who are trained in certain areas, but they don't have a maybe deeper tribal connection. And when people get feathers from our aviary, they're coming from a living bird who we are treating as relatives. They are clan animals. They are our family, and we treat them as such. And so we can often, because Jennifer and Bree know the birds so well, and they also know their colors and their patterns, they can tell which feather came from which bird by where it fell, by the way that, and so you as an individual receiving that feather can come back and see the bird that it came from, and that special connection back to that living bird. Especially for, we've had people who've come because they are battling cancer, or they've lost someone to cancer. We've had birds who have battled cancer, and I'm going to get emotional. And when you can have a feather from a bird who went through that, or when we have a veteran who comes back and we can give them a feather from a bird who maybe has survived a gunshot wound or has survived something very, very hard and have been able to continue on and be part of our process and our connection to the Creator, it means so much. So we think of them, in our teachings, eagles are our warriors. They carry our prayers to the Creator, and we think of them as our warriors. And for those Eagles who live out their rest of their lives at our aviary, they are continuing to serve in that role. They are continuing to fight for us, to help us to have that connection. And we value them as relatives. We also value their role in our cosmology and in our religious teachings. And they just because they can't continue to function in the wild the way they did does not mean they do not still serve that role for us. Right. And most of them are there because of something that humans have done to them. And they still love us. And, we're always going to be there for them to give them that love back.
Right. They're not just symbols. They are our family. And words cannot express how meaningful, the morning that my grandpa passed away and I met, and you told me the story, you and Jennifer and Bree, and about Gracie and her journey, and offered the gift of one of her feathers to me. And it just was one of the most special times of my life. And I can't thank you all enough for that, Miigwech. And I want to say that you talk about leaving. I can, especially with your connection and that history there. But I know that, and I know you know this too, that you're always connected to them. But going away to Harvard to serve as the program director for the Native American program at Harvard University, what was that experience like? Being up there, and you're yeah, I know you had so much I was sad that you were leaving Oklahoma, but I had this feeling you'd come back. But I knew you would be taking just really incredible knowledge up there, and would have some wonderful memories to make and to hopefully bring home too.
Yeah, it was a hard decision. You don't leave home and you don't leave your own family unless you feel like you are going to an opportunity where you can really make a difference. And so when the opportunity at Harvard presented itself, I knew being able to work with the students was something that was going to be really, really special to me. And, I did have hesitations. Harvard has a complicated history with the Native American community. And in my interview process, they really owned it. And they when I called them out on some things, they said, absolutely. And that's why we want you to come. And I thought, I can do this. I can go to a place that's ready to own up to its own past and its own history, and to do the hard work of doing the right thing. Right. And I loved my time at Harvard. My kiddos, I miss those kids so much. I have text messages on my phone that I need to return from some of my students right now. They are so special. I think people have a image in their head of what a Harvard student is. And I tell you what, our Native students who are at Harvard, they come from all over Indian country. Right. They come from remote reservations. They sometimes came from communities in Alaska where they had to take seaplane to get their school supplies. They are brilliant kids who are far from home, and they're doing the hard work of bettering themselves so that they can go on to just shine in whatever field it is. A lot of them are excited to take that degree and go back home and do good work on their reservations. And it was such a special, special opportunity to be able to be on that campus and be part of their lives. And, I thought I would be out there for several more years, but when opportunity knocks, you kind of, the position at FAM isn't going to come open very often.
Hallelujah.
So, yes. When it happened, I thought, I'm going to have to drug the cats and pack up everything and haul everything back halfway across the country. And
I was thinking about you on that journey.
I do not suggest moving halfway across the country with two cats who don't want to be in a car that close together. It was traumatizing.
Oh my goodness. You're doing awesome things at FAM. And I know we have a gala coming up, and we also have some other new developments that are coming up in our near future. And the Family Discovery Center is an important priority for FAM. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, our Family Discovery Center is going to be opening late summer. It is our children's exhibit. It's 5,000 square feet of an interactive playscape where there's 2 stories, where the upper level is a climbing structure where the kids can climb in the trees. And the whole concept of it is the idea of a pop-up book. So there are all these multi-plane surfaces, and it's everything in there that you're going to see comes from Oklahoma. So every animal that's depicted, every plant that's depicted is a native to Oklahoma plant or animal. We have some animal relatives who are in there to help distinguish the various zones of the area. We have a lot of interactive, fun things so that the one thing I think every Native person in Oklahoma has heard at one time was, we never learned this stuff in school. Right. I never learned about this stuff. And as adults, people feel like they were lied to, or like they had something kept from them that was really precious. And we never want Oklahoma kids to have that come out of their mouths as adults from little bitty babies. They can come in and learn about the tribes in Oklahoma and learn about the history, but also the contemporary ways of being Indigenous and the many, many wonderful ways our tribes have contributed to our state. I want them to learn that from the very, very, very beginning so that we never have to hear another adult come in and say, I never knew these things.
Absolutely. And, FAM will always be doing new and exciting things. This is an important time, with Okana just opening up and this sense of destination for the whole site. We'll have the Family Discovery Center that will be opening, and new exhibits will be coming, down the line later as well. And we have our gala, and it is such a gift to me. Thank you for inviting me to serve as the chair for our gala Mskwabek. And I'm just so excited. Would you like, it is so meaningful to hear you talk about the inspiration behind the gala and what the experience will be like, and how we can honor special people who have made great contributions to our community and professionally. And this is going to be a really great evening.
Absolutely. We love the idea of being able to have an annual gala and to be able to recognize the various tribes across the state, but also amazing Native people who were doing really cool things. So when we said, who should we get to be the chair of this, every single person in the room said, Gena.
Thank
who
you.
Who knows FAM better?
Yes.
No one knows FAM better than you. No one has the connection to the people and understanding what all it took to pull FAM together than you do. So you're the perfect fit for that.
Thank you.
And we were thinking, what do we want this to be? Do we want it to just be a fun party? Do we want it to be an opportunity to, highlight certain things that are going on in Oklahoma? And we said, why don't we do something where we can give awards and recognize some of the really significant contributions of various people throughout the state who have really made an impact, not only on Oklahoma, but on Indian country. And so we are very excited to have a star-studded night, really, where we are going to be able to recognize the 3 aviaries, eagle aviaries in Oklahoma. Sterling Harjo is going to be our keynote. Yay, Sterling, thank you. He's going to be our keynote and receive an award. We're also recognizing people who have made contributions to culture. And we're also doing our American Indian Athletic Hall of Fame induction. So we'll have some fabulous athletes. And so this is all happening on May 2nd. If you want to come to FAM and have amazing food that's going to be catered by Chef Loretta Barrett from 39 Restaurant, see the amazing speaker and other guests. We're going to have some great auction items. It's just going to be a fun night. I think what we wanted at the end of the night was for people to be able to leave and say, 1, FAM is a beautiful place.
Right.
2, Oklahoma has some really cool people doing some really cool things. Just have a good time and come and celebrate the amazing opportunities that we have that are really unique to being here in Oklahoma.
Absolutely. So if one wanted to attend the gala or contribute to the Discovery Center, where would they go?
Absolutely. You can go to our website. We have a page on there for the gala where you can buy individual tickets. You can buy sponsorships. Please buy sponsorships. You can also make donations to the General Museum, to the Family Discovery Center, anything that you want. And if you want to reach out, there's a contact on our website. We can actually have one of our development team reach out to you and say, how do you want to contribute? What kind of impact do you want to make? And we'll find something that fits for you.
Well, Kelli, I'm so excited about you being here on the show, but about all of the awesome things that you've accomplished and what all you have before you here back in Oklahoma with FAM, and side by side with V, with all the fun that we have. So thank you so much for being on the show. Miigwech.
Yakoki, thank you for joining us. Timber People is brought to you by the Possibilities Podcast platform.